Hey Stitches, I'm Sam Cole, and in today's video I thought it would be fun to do kind of like a 2-for-1, 2 ideas in one video. And so in order to do that, we're gonna do my October reading radar, and we're also gonna do creating my fantasy bookshelf. I have quickly come to realize that I gravitate the most towards fantasy, and I really wanted a better way of like displaying all of my favorites all together. And so what better way to do that than to just have a dedicated shrine bookshelf for them, you know? So in this video we're gonna go and move all the books from our large bookshelves over to this one, and then organize them, kind of go through how they're set up, and then we're gonna end on the October reading radar. So let's get right into it. So along with my fantasy bookshelf, I thought it would be good to have a place where I put like my top of my head reading radar, because I have a lot of books that are on my physical TBR, but not all of them are ones that I want to read like right now. So that's what I'm going to do with the top of this bookshelf. These are going to be the books that I want to reach for like as soon as possible this month and the coming months. So I thought it would be fun to go through that with you, and you guys can let me know which ones I should get to first and which ones you've read, which ones you didn't like so much, and yeah, so let's get started. So I thought I would start with the books that have been on my TBR/radar for the longest, but I thought that they would be perfect for the spooky fall season, especially October. And the first one is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baltrey. I know that I'm like way behind on this. I know that like everyone and their mom has read this already, but it took me a while to actually pick it up, but I found this copy at my local like used bookstore and I decided I couldn't pass it up, and it was fate. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about this one. This is a cozy fantasy about an orc, I believe, who opens up a coffee shop and just like the trials and tribulations of that process. Like I said, it's cozy fantasy, so very low stakes, very just atmospheric, good vibes, all that fun stuff. So I thought this might be a nice like palate cleanser in between some of these other like intense fantasy worlds that I'm going to be diving into. Next up, we have The Book Eaters by Suni Dean. I picked this up, actually my partner picked this up at Barnes & Noble not that long ago, but I just thought it sounded so interesting, and especially for like the spooky season. This world follows people that like literally eat books, like the title says, literally they eat books. And basically, out on the Yorkshire moors lives a secret line of people for whom books are food and who retain all the book's content after eating it. To them, spy novels are a peppery snack, romance novels are sweet and delicious, eating a map can help them remember destinations, and children, when they misbehave, are forced to eat dry, musty pages from dictionaries. Devon is part of the family, an old and reclusive clan of book eaters. Her brothers grew up feasting on stories of valor and adventure, and Devon, like other book eater women, is raised on a carefully curated diet of fairy tales and cautionary tales. But real life doesn't always come with happy endings, as Devon learns when her son is born with a rare and darker kind of hunger, not for books, but for human minds. That sounds so good. So good. So this is going on the TBR. Next up, we have If We Were Villains by ML Rio. Again, I feel like everyone and their mother has already read this, but I finally picked it up. I thought it would be such a great fit because it really circles around like mystery and Shakespeare and all of that. I prefer to go into my like thrillers knowing not a lot, so I'm not going to read the back, but I do know that this is about like a group of friends who used to be in like the theater department, I think, together, and maybe one of their friends dies, and then it's like 10 years later and we're going back and trying to figure out like what happened and follow that. And I know there's lots of like Shakespearean references and all of that, and so I think that'll be a lot of fun. Next up, one that I've had on my shelf actually for a while. It's kind of blown up, and the next book is coming out I think in November, so really soon, and I want to read this before I get that one. And also I got accepted for the ARC of that book, so I'm super excited. But anyway, the next book is One Dark Window by Rachel Gellig. This sounds so good. It's been described as like a gothic fantasy, which right up my alley, and I thought it would be super fun. And obviously like the spooky season, gothic fantasy, what could be better? So this sounds really good to me. It sounds like there is like plague or illness that's going around this community, and they're trying to figure out like how to stop it, but it is like somehow brought into dark magic. And I think our main character Elizabeth has like this spirit in her head that she calls the Nightmare, and that just sounds super cool, that dynamic of like voices in your head and gothic and all of that. So sounds like a perfect spooky tale. And like I said, there's only one so far, and then the next book comes out I think in November, so I definitely want to get these read before then. Next up, we have A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. I am currently reading A River Enchanted right now, and I'm absolutely in love with it and devouring it, so I assume that I'll probably jump into this right after I finish that. But this is a duology, and like I said, I've really been enjoying the first book so far. I'm about halfway through it, I think, and it's described more as like a folk fantasy or like a folk fairy tale type vibe, but essentially, I'm not going to read the back so I don't spoil the end of the first book, but essentially the first book follows our main character who has returned back to the Isle of his like homeland after being on the mainland for like pretty much most of his life, getting an education in music in order to become their bard. And essentially their bards are like their history keepers and their like storytellers, like all of that. And basically he has been asked back by the clan leader because the little girls of the village and the island have been disappearing, and they are hoping that him as the bard can summon the spirits of the island in order to get their help and find out like where they are and what they can do to get them back. So it sounds really good. Like I said, I've been really loving it so far. Can't wait to see how it goes, and I like how it's a duology. I don't know that I've read a ton of duologies, so it could be fun to just have, you know, like a series but two. Does that make sense? Like, it's not intimidating to get into. Obviously, she's the woman who wrote Divine Rivals, so after reading the writing style of these duologies, I definitely think I'm gonna read that next. I know that Sarah Crowley loves Divine Rivals, but didn't love these just because these are a little bit slower paced, I guess, but I've been loving it so far. It is a little slower paced, but it's a pretty lyrical. I don't know, it's definitely not as slow as like Greek tales or anything like that, but it's that type of writing where it's very like musical and lyrical and all of that. So yeah, A Fire Endless. And then I have been seeing these two books all over Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all of that, so you know, I had to be a part of it. And I found both of these on the BOGO table at Barnes, so it was like fate. The first one is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I have not read anything by this author. The Dead Romantics is also by her, and is also very popular, and I'm definitely interested in reading that as well. I just haven't picked it up yet. But this sounds so good. It's kind of like a romance meets women's fiction, women's lit type book, from what I've heard, but essentially it sounds like this follows Clementine, our main character, and she is returning back to her aunt's home because she has recently passed, and she's gonna like live there, I think, maybe clean it up, or maybe she's just moving in, I'm not quite sure. But apparently the loft, the apartment, is like magical because as she comes in one day, she finds this man in the kitchen and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "What do you mean? Like, I live here." So, but the twist is that the man lives 7 years in the past. So they have this like time together, but then they go on living like their like now timelines, but also experiencing 7 years in the past. So that sounds really interesting, really cool. Something I haven't heard of. Everyone that I've seen that's read this has loved it, so I feel like you can't go wrong. In that same vein, the other book that I got in the BOGO tables was You Again by Kate Goldbeck. This has been described as a gender bent When Harry Met Sally, which I love me a good rom-com, so that sounds so good to me. Basically it sounds like it's these two people that keep running into each other throughout their whole lives, like, oh, it's you again. And they like kind of hate each other, I think. And then eventually I assume they start to fall in love. And yeah, I really love that type of thing. Also, this cover is just like stunning, perfect fall vibes. So again, I thought this would be another thing to like pick up in between some of these fantasies as a little palette cleanser, but looks really good. So You Again. And then never have I ever experienced FOMO. That couldn't be me. I'm better than that. I just am really secure in myself and know the books that sound good to me. And so I don't really fall victim to FOMO. Anyway, if you didn't know, A Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco just came out, and it sounds amazing. And it is part of the world of the Kingdom of the Wicked series, which I never got around to reading, but they sound really, really good. My understanding is that the new book is a new adult maturity book, and that these start as young adult, but they might like kind of ease their way into new adult. So anyway, I've heard you don't have to read these in order to read that book, but that if you like that book and decide to go back to this trilogy, then it's kind of like spoiled for you. So I figured might as well hop on that, and I have to be involved and know everything. So yeah, these books sounded really good. They were pretty inexpensive, right? Anyway, I needed them. So I got Kingdom of the Wicked, Kingdom of the Feared, and Kingdom of the Cursed, I think. Or it might be Kingdom of the Cursed and then Kingdom of the Feared. I'm not sure. But essentially, this is about these twin sisters, Amelia and Victoria, who are witches that are secretly living among like the humans. And one day one of the sisters ends up like brutally murdered, and so Amelia sets out to find her sister's killer and to like figure out who did it and seek justice, basically, or vengeance. And then she meets Wrath, who is one of the wicked, the princes of hell, and she's heard about them her whole life and has heard like scary stories and like stay away from these people, basically. But it's like he says he wants to help. Does he have ulterior motives? I don't know. Sounds good to me. So that's what we're gonna read. And then as soon as I finish these, I'm definitely gonna go get that Throne of the Fallen from Barnes and get on that. So yeah, I'm sure I will be influenced by my fellow book community because you guys find like the most amazing gems out there. But those are the top books on my October reading radar. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you've read any of these, if you liked them, if you didn't like them, if there's books that you think I should add, please let me know. I would love any and all book recommendations. And yeah, I would love to add more to my fantasy shelf. Maybe get another one in the future. Maybe just have a whole big bookshelf of fantasy. I don't know, we could get wild. But thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll hopefully catch you in the next one. Bye!